I think we've got to continue to do a hard sell on the space program, regardless of whether or not Mission 14 is a complete success or an only partial success. I think it's incumbent on us to learn as much about outer space as we can, to maintain a position of leadership in the exploration of outer space. I hate to see us lose the initiative and to fall behind the Soviet Union in this most important aspect of technological advance.
Do you feel that there is a general feeling of a need for ethics finally?
I hope so. I supported it 2 years ago and 4 years ago in losing causes in the House, and I think this year that we shall win finally with the ethics bill and the constitutional amendment regarding the ethics commission.
Do you feel that having this same commission the authority to set salaries of legislators will give it difficulty in having it passed by the people?
I don't feel that it should.
In the most spirited debate of the 3-week-old legislature, the House of Representatives approved a constitutional amendment creating an independent commission to write and oversee a code of ethics for all state officials and employees. Most debate was not on ethics, but on details and procedures, such as this argument by Mrs. Frances Farenthold, representative of Corpus Christi.
The first problem I had was with the structure of the commission, and I think Mr. Nugent has done a splendid job in changing the manner in which they would be appointed. But secondly, and most seriously, and a matter that I cannot overlook, is the fact that I believe we're actually taking statutory material and putting it in the Constitution.
Some representatives indicated that they felt that the commission would have too much power, but they had to vote for it because of public sentiment in favor of ethics bills at this time. The Republicans in the House, all but one, voted against the Code of Ethics bill. Will Lee of Houston said that it's because the legislature is copping out by giving it to a commission. The legislature should handle it itself. He also said that the power to change legislators' salaries should be reserved to the people and not turned over to a commission. Tomorrow, here in the House of Representatives, debate will continue on constitutional amendments, including one that would remove most of the ceilings on welfare and one which would allow the governor's $450 million bond issue to take effect. Representative Ben Atwell of Dallas, who is chairman of the House Revenue and Taxation Committee, is handling the governor's bond issue proposal, but he admits that it probably will lose. In lieu of that, I asked him what would come next.
We have a proposal to increase the present sales tax three-quarters of a cent up to 4%, rounded off 4%, which wouldn't be 5% if the city has a sales tax.
Would this still include the present exemptions on groceries and medicine?
Exactly as it is now. That's correct.
Would this be a large portion of the revenue or all of the revenue that has been talked about?
No, I think we'd have to have some more for the rest of this biennium, at least, to meet this obligation of $70 million.
Atwell said that the sales tax increase will be planned to take effect soon so that it can provide some of that needed emergency supplemental money. This is Roger McDonald, Channel 8 News on the Move in Austin.
I'm sure that there's a legitimate explanation for this, and I don't think it's going to have any appreciable effect. It's difficult to gauge right now because the story just broke this morning, and I don't even know the details of it myself. But I would be very disinclined to think that there was anything that was improper about it.
For maybe a day or two, and that's it. So the experimentation is very limited off Broadway.
It's easy to The cotton export outlook for the next couple of years is good, but we can't stop and rest on laurels. These are the words of Clarence Palmby, Assistant Agriculture Secretary, one of several guest speakers here to address the Cotton Council. Palmby said the United States and Russia have good positions in the world cotton market, not only because of good acreage and good production, but also because other countries, such as Mexico and Brazil, have had bad cotton crops.
That means that the export outlook for us is somewhat brighter, and factually we had one of the best months we've had for a long, long time last December. And so there is some reason to believe that our exports will be up substantially from last year. And truthfully, if we had a little bit more in the warehouses of some staple lengths, we would have a still larger export market. That's why it is so important that we do produce a good crop of cotton this year.
Several recommendations are expected to come from tomorrow's session concerning the future of cotton. The main recommendation will be that farmers be allowed to plant cotton on their set-aside land. Even though they would not receive subsidy payments on the extra cotton, they also wouldn't be penalized for overproduction of their product. All the recommendations coming from the meeting are expected to revolve around putting pressure on the Department of Agriculture to encourage farmers to plant as much as 100% cotton in order to stay on top in the world market and to eliminate the possible short supply of cotton. Jerry Park, Channel 8 News on the Move at the National Cotton Council meeting.
This is the first year that we're having our own tournaments. We have 32 players under contract with World Championship Tennis, and Dallas is one of the stops with $50,000 in prize money. And the idea of this is to get a regular circuit going of 20 tournaments. At the end of each tournament, the winner gets so many points, runner-up, so on, right down. And this is to bring out to see who is actually the world champion on points. And it also is going to improve the game because we're going to play on a universal surface. Every time we play indoors, we'll be playing on the same type of surface. We'll be using the same ball. Before, we used to swap and change surfaces, change balls, and tennis is a hard enough game to play on a perfect surface, let alone changing all the time.
Would you expect that all of you will try to participate in all 20 of the tournaments? Is that a part of the contract at all?
Well, I think if you have any brains, you will, because you get so many points each tournament, and at the end of the year, we're playing the top 8 guys with the most points will play off for virtually the World Championship in Madison Square Garden, where the prize money is really big.
A group of Grand Prairie citizens, about 250 in number, want this sewage treatment plant closed, and they have even threatened to put up pickets to accomplish just that. The plant actually belongs to Arlington, although it is within the city limits of Grand Prairie. Recently, due to a construction to enlarge this plant, obnoxious odors have been emitted, and the citizens here claim that some bodily harm was caused them because of the odors. Grand Prairie officials claim Arlington has never received a permit to enlarge the plant to its present capacity. However, in speaking with the Utilities Director of Arlington today, John Kabala, he does say that a permit was obtained.
We do have a permit from the Texas Water Quality Board to operate this plant at a given rate. In other words, this permit was received by us after a public hearing to operate the plant.
Grand Prairie City Attorney Jerry Brownlow says that suit against Arlington will still be filed, and it will come within about 10 days on the grounds of Grand Prairie City ordinances and the Texas Clean Air Act. That suit will be filed in the county of Dallas.
Well, I think the remedy is money, personally, and I think that's the basic problem. The money is too dispersed. For instance, I'm talking about government subsidies. We're not setting up. There are no real avenues for playwrights. You know, playwrights are scattered. They get in college. They'll be working in college, and they don't know where to go, and they have to work. So instead of writing, they're working. And before they get a play through, maybe they send it to producers, and before a producer even reads a play, is months and months and months. And most producers don't even know what they're reading anyway. I think that's the problem. We don't have any centers for artists in this country. We don't have a national theater.
Well, I think there's a whole trend and change that's going on because of like Love Story. Things are going in a different area, and fortunately, it's going back to the medium of the artist and the good material, as opposed to just the exploitation and the quick get it out in the market because the skin is showing.
But isn't that what this is when dinosaurs ruled the earth?
Well, it appears that way because we are very scantily dressed, but it is a G-rated picture, and there is like a baby dinosaur that I train and communicate with. And so in spite of, what you see visually with the costumes, it's, the story is a love story, and it is something dealing with animals, that attracts that medium and that audience.
Is this going to be the trend now in Hollywood toward more G-rated pictures?
I think so. I hope so.
Takes place, you get a big demand for bank credit, and your short-term rates tend to come back. But I expect long-term rates to normalize as people expect less inflation, because I think these rates are high because people are concerned about the dollars they lend.
Will a successful Apollo 14 flight have any impact on the space budget and its passage?
Well, no spending in a sense is easy to bear. It comes out of my pocket and your pocket as taxpayers. But I'm not one that believes the American people judges a space program on any one flight or any one incident. I think the people are tremendously proud of what we've done, and that our continued space exploration will be consistent with what we can afford.
But wouldn't another failure like Apollo 13 cause a great deal of criticism of the spending?
I think it would cause questions as to why the failure took place, but I do not think that in and of itself that would or should result in a big change there, because you're dealing with something with millions and millions of variables. And I don't look upon Apollo 13 as a failure in that sense. I look upon it as a demonstration of the tremendous ability of men to handle problems of that type.
With our modern society becoming more technically complicated, there's greater emphasis being placed on the vocational education programs in the state of Texas. The Advisory Council for Technical Vocational Education in Texas is headed by the Executive Director, Alton Ice of Austin. He is here for one of 15 regional meetings around the state to determine the needs of vocational education. Mr. Ice discussed the future of vocational education in the state of Texas.
Well, sir, we feel that there needs to be more of the right kind, and don't ask me to say what the right kind is. We feel very strongly that all of our education systems should be very closely aligned to the needs of individuals and the economy. This is kindly our theme, that, as I guess many people today would say, relevancy.
Would you say, then, that the vocational education in Texas is indeed relevant to the needs of the people?
Well, I think to some extent we think there are opportunities for improvement.
When the Vocational Advisory Council has completed its series of 15 meetings around the state and all of its findings are in, the report will be made to the legislature and to the governor of Texas. At that time, perhaps we will know in what direction vocational education will follow for the coming years. Art Sinclair, Channel 8 News on the Move, Arlington.
In addition to the thrills and chills of any rodeo, there's also a certain amount of pomp and splendor. That pomp comes in the grand entry, in which there are sometimes 600 horses and riders parading through a show arena. The man who's been coordinating grand entries for the Fort Worth Stock Show for the last 12 years is Red Moore. I asked him why the grand entry.
Well, it's a colorful event. It lends color to the show. It gets the show started off, and it's really colorful. You know, people love to see it, and people love to participate in it. And the people themselves, these clubs, have to ride and practice, and they put in a lot of time and effort, and they go to a lot of expense and everything to come up here and to help us put on this thing.
A lot of people wonder about why the grand entry has persisted and has, in fact, even grown larger over the last few years since the rodeo began. Well, some people would like to see the rodeo streamlined, to see more events in one day and less of the pomp and pageantry that has marked rodeos to this date. Now, if WFAA were in charge of a grand entry, it might look something like this.
The House of Representatives has set a $55 million limit on the amount of money that can be used in the Families with Dependent Children category of welfare spending. The Senate had set the limit at $80 million per year. This difference now will have to be adjusted before the matter can be set for a vote of the people on the constitutional amendment tentatively planned for May the 18th. The rather spirited debate that took place here in the House can be seen in an example of an amendment offered by Representative Cordell Hull of Fort Worth to lower the limit to $40 million, and a rebuttal to that idea by Carlos Truon from Corpus Christi. The controversy on the welfare amendment was limited to AFDC. The other categories, old age, blind, and permanently disabled, were left with no ceiling put on them, just as the Senate had passed the measure. Governor Preston Smith's $450 million bond issue was put off until tomorrow. It still seems likely to fail. Also coming up tomorrow here in the House will be a $65 million emergency supplemental appropriation, with the largest portion of that money going into the Welfare Department. The present planning is to fund that either with deficit financing or by increasing the sales tax by 0.75%.
Legend has it that if on this day the groundhog comes out and sees its shadow, he'll go back into the burrow and we'll have 6 weeks more of winter. Well, I don't know what a groundhog looks like, so I enlisted the aid of a couple of experts. And the first expert I'd like for you to meet is Beth Strain. Beth is from University Park Elementary School in Dallas, and she's the winner in the grade 1 to 4 category of Cannonball Rental Company's annual groundhog coloring contest. Beth, will you hold up your picture? This is Mr. Groundhog. Now then, I see the word sniff, sniff coming from the groundhog and pow, pow coming from the man. Now, what does that mean?
Well, you see, the hunter has come to shoot the groundhog, and the gun has gone pow, pow, and he is sniffing the air.
Does he see a shadow?
No. I don't think so.
Okay. The other expert that I'd like for you to meet is the winner in grades 5 through 8, and it's Jane Rumcheck. She goes to Daggett Middle School in Fort Worth. Jane, will you hold up your picture? This is unique. She's got it in the parade. Why the parade, Jane?
Well, I just had them in a parade because I said it was their day, because they wouldn't have named it Groundhog Day if it wasn't their day.
And Groundhog Day it is. I decided to try my luck in the coloring contest, so I'd like for you to show my picture. This is the picture I drew, and it won first prize in the pre-kindergarten category. This is Cherry Park, Channel 8 News on the Move.
After this morning's school board meeting, school officials say that with any kind of luck at all, by February 22nd, the desk and chair that I'm using, as well as the desks and chairs on these 4 boxcars, will be inside Skyline High School, being used by Skyline High School students. On Channel 8's News 8 at noon, Jim Mitchell and I talked with Bill Stamps, the principal at Skyline High.
We will, of course, have all of these details by the time we come back in March to adopt this report. We will spend the entire month of February informing our membership of this report, and then it will be up for approval at the March meeting of the Faculty Representative Assembly. And then after that, it will be presented to the superintendent and the school board.
we like to call our type of business a recession-resistant business. At a time like this, the basic reason for our existence as a company and our products is a saving to the consumer in using a rebuilt part. And during this particular time, when people are watching their expenditures and trying to keep their car in repair and running at the lowest possible cost, this particularly is our kind of market.
The last biennium, they were allowed about $23,100,000. They're requesting approximately $45 million this time. Now, as you probably know, anytime any agency comes before that appropriations committee, they're going to ask for more money than they need. And I'm giving them a little bit of leeway there by putting it at $40 million. I think the people back home are going to appreciate it because they're looking for economy down here. They're not wanting us to spend money.
I'm surprised that Mr. Hull would present this in view of the fact that the children in his district that are on welfare are getting an average of $30.83 a month, and that the families that qualified for aid to the families with dependent children get an average of $118.58. I'm certainly surprised that he would take it out on the children of his district as well as the children of our districts all over the state.
I think it's capability. I don't know about any political aspects to it, although he's been a political figure. People try to figure political things. I think the president is convinced that he can do a tremendous job as Secretary of the Treasury, and that's it.
Many of our economic analysts are saying that the interest rates will be on their way back up before this year is out. Would you agree?
Well, it depends on what interest rates you have. Your short-term rates are here. Your longer-term rates are there. Your Treasury bill rate's about 4 1/4. Your long-term rate's around 6. I expect something like that.